I am, by definition, a rather lazy person. And so when someone asked me to send an SSTO mission to Minmus, and by that I mean one of my friends who've never played KSP before, I decided to rise to the challenge and not use an SSTO at all. As you can see, there just went the first stage, underneath a load of Separatrons. And if we open the clamshell fairing, you can see that we have a plane. It's a plane, it's close enough, it flies like a brick, but you'll see that later. That remains to be seen, and I remembered that I'd forgotten to take off the air brakes as control surfaces, really, I guess. But guys, welcome to a mission to Minmus, and as I said, this mission to Minmus is slightly different to usual because we are using a plane to actually try and land best as we can and then take off like a plane once again. We're using Minmus because it's really easy to take off and land on, really, just because of the really low gravity that is on Minmus. And like I say, we are going to do an inclination burn in but a second to get us on the route. But first, let's take a moment to admire the view. I will never get tired of that view, especially with the clouds and the different light that's reflecting off it. It looks so nice, really nice. But you can see here we're making our inclination burn, and this mission to Minmus it went on for quite a while. I looked at the actual thing, the timestamp before I sped this thing up. It was like an hour and 16 minutes, and bearing in mind that I usually have a mission to Minmus which is about 45 minutes tops, it's quite a long time. And you can also see here, one of the reasons why it took such a long time is because we made use of gravity assists within the Kerbal system to actually save us a bit of delta V in order to get there, because that plane doesn't really have all that much fuel in its fuselage. Once we burnt out this stage, we're basically on our own, so we had to use some form of gravity assist in order to get a little bit of extra velocity. So you can see here we're using the moon first of all to kick our orbits a bit further up. I think we came just over the top of the moon, so it won't give us too much of a gravity assist, but it's a sufficient amount of velocity so that we will encounter Minmus at a decent rate to actually slow down. We will of course trim the encounter as we get closer to Minmus, and again, that sunset behind Kerbal just looks beautiful. You can see us entering the sphere of influence of the moon, passing over the North Pole. The North Pole looks rocky, very rocky. And yeah, that's pretty much all of that gravity assist, and the orbits of course go crazy because that's something that hasn't been fixed in Kerbal Space Program 1.0 but will be fixed in 1.1 hopefully with the UI overhaul, which is something that has been ongoing for the past couple of weeks and something that I haven't really covered on KSP News because it's kind of hard to cover in layman's terms, because it's just the technical jargon is so much so that even I don't understand about it, and so me talking about something I don't really understand is even worse than me talking about something I do understand. I'll probably stutter even more, and it would be an absolute shit show. Put lightly, and you can see Kerbal from a distance out the cockpit window there, which is always nice to see. So we have our encounter set up for Minmus. We're going to be doing quite a substantial burn here. 116 meters a second on this mission was actually quite a lot, and you can see here we burnt out our transfer stage, so we're now using the rocket engine on the plane itself. This doesn't actually have any air-fed engines. This engine, what am I talking about? This plane, it only has a single LVT-45 rocket engine and some RCS thrusters just for control and slowing descent, because what I attempted to do with this aircraft is do something called high altitude braking. I'm not sure of the exact terminology for it, but I tried on the return to Kerbal to do something like high altitude braking. So what you do is you deploy air brakes, like as soon as you hit 69 kilometers, you deploy the air brakes, and that should start slowing you down so that hopefully the heating that's caused by it is sort of less pronounced. That didn't really work. I don't know if it was because of my angle of approach to the atmosphere. It didn't really work at all with this, and you'll see several quick loads throughout the whole of this entire video because of things going wrong. Because as usual, as with one of my missions, a lot of things do actually go wrong. So you can see here we're trying to land on a flat area of Minmus. I think we ended up landing on the lesser flats of Minmus. If that's me being correct or me being stupid, I'm not too sure, but I do believe it was the lesser flats, which is of course sea level on Minmus, in case you weren't aware. It's always nice to try to go to Minmus, I think, as your first port of call rather than the moon, because obviously landing on it's a lot easier because the gravity is so much less. And in the long run, I think it takes a little bit more delta V to get there, because obviously it's lower, it's higher up in Kerbin's gravity well. But to be honest, to get home, the amount of delta V you need is absolutely minuscule. So you can see here we're going to start our deorbit burn now. We did a little bit of an inclination change in order to get ourselves just a little bit ahead of the flats so that we can perform a braking burn. Flip ourselves the right way up. I think I tried to put my landing gear down there, and yeah, the craft just decided to fall apart. But we try again and it's all okay. This was an error on my part through building this craft, is that I clipped the landing gear too high up. And as a result, it caused me so many problems throughout the whole of this. And oh, it was an absolute nightmare to deal with, particularly during re-entry. You can probably see there for like a frame, I was trying to check if I was still recording because I thought I'd hit stop recording with the reload, but it turns out I didn't, and so we're going to come in and start our braking burn to land on one of the lesser flats of Minmus. Now, one of the caveats to me doing this is that I started doing it right on the sunrise of Minmus, or rather sunset, and relative to its rotation. So I'm sorry about this, but it's going to be in the dark. The landing's going to be in the dark. There's no way to be in about the bush. As you can probably see in the intro clip, you probably already know what's happened here, but you can see we're slowly coming down. I deployed the brakes for whatever reason, somehow forgetting that, of course, at very best, Minmus has some kind of exosphere, which probably won't give any sort of braking whatsoever with air brakes. So we have to resort to traditional rocket power. I don't think even Minmus would have an exosphere. Would a body that small even have an exosphere? I know the moon has some sort of gas surrounding it, but you can see here this is our final braking maneuver, and we hit down onto our wheels and start spinning. We do a backflip, we do another flip, and we touch down on the surface. Or rather, we touch down and sort of float on the surface because the gravity is so damn low on this. I nearly called it a planet then. Minmus is not a planet. Minmus is, of course, a moon, and the gravity is so darn low. So we time warp to daytime, and we tried to test, shall we say, how low the gravity is by getting, I can't remember the name of this guy. You'll probably be able to see this in the final thing. I'm going to call him Steve. Steve Kerman is obviously stepping out of this beautiful craft, which is really hastily slapped together to, of course, plant a flag of happiness on Minmus. One of the many, and of course pose for publicity photos with it on the surface. And also, just as a little side note here while we're walking around, some of the beautification mods I have installed here, like the reflective visors, I think that's texture replacer or window shine. It's one of the two, and I'm not too sure which one it is, but it just looks beautiful. Like with having the reflection of Minmus's hills and the craft, it looks really, really nice, as you can see him jumping around there, of course, testing the gravity. But also, in case you haven't already noticed, you can see the minty hue. I like that. I'm going to use that minty hue that's reflecting off the underside of the craft, and of course the Kerbals. That is the Planet Shine mod, and that just looks incredible. I love it so much when you can see like this the light that's reflecting off it. Of course, now Steve's friend Bob. No, Bob is already a proper Kerman. I'm going to call him Jake Kerman. So we have Steve and Jake Kerman, who are about to get back into their craft now after exploring the surface of Minmus. And whoa! Obviously, it wouldn't be complete. A mission to Minmus would not be complete without trying to backflip. And Steve wants to get on the action too, and Steve goes even higher. Wow! Don't know quite what that bug was there. I think it's because I tried to grab onto the ladder just a little too high, and as a result, it sent Steve and Jake Kerman flying off. And it was rather fun to witness, I do have to admit. But I love those two mods. I really do recommend checking them out. But it's time to leave Minmus, so if we, of course, take off like a plane and immediately put ourselves into a really, really high orbit for some reason. Because probably I'm an idiot. from doing that. I actually realised as well we took off too shallow, and we didn't take off too shallow, but we just skimmed the top of the edge of the flats here onto the hills. But we are now going into an orbit around Minmus, and so it's time to escape. Obviously, I'm here planning my trajectory. This is where things start to go a little bit pear-shaped, because I decide, well, not really pear-shaped, but more sort of complicated, because I thought I had enough fuel to get home, and to be honest, I think I probably did. It's just the alignment of the moon and Minmus. I thought, why not save a bit of fuel? Why not return it and, I don't know, sell it on second hand? And what we'll do is we'll get a gravity assist off the moon, and we'll use that to bring us down onto into Kerbin's atmosphere to hopefully aerobrake. And so that's what I thought I might do. And you can see me here getting the moon encounter, because I thought, chance moon encounter, might as well take it. Why the hell not? So you can see me here. I've also fixed the RCS on so that pardon me, so that I can burn any excess fuel, which means we're as light as possible when actually entering the atmosphere. I did also quick save because for some reason something happened. I think I missed my node because of time warp, but we get the node eventually, and I obviously quick save quite a lot in this time, and so you can see we're getting our moon encounter nice and easy. Also, I do have to apologise, I guess I have to say, if I do have somewhat of a coughing fit at some point in this video. It's because according to Britain at the moment, I now have one of the many colds that are going around, because of course it's autumn, which means stuff's getting colder, means human bodies are ripe, warm harvest areas for bacteria and other horrible pathogens to live inside, otherwise they will die. And so as a result, I sound bunged up, and I may also go into a coughing fit, hence what that last sort of choke was. I didn't just choke and die. Obviously I'm still talking, but I'm going off on a ramble. So you can see here we're about to enter the moon's sphere of influence. I'm just tweaking the encounter so that we dip just enough inside of Kerbin's atmosphere to slow down, but not enough to burn up. Didn't quite judge this completely accurately, I have to admit, and it does take I think 2 attempts, but that's remains to be seen, put it this way. So you can see here the burn was easy enough just to put us on a trajectory around the moon. I think this probably ended up taking more fuel than it actually needed, to be fair, but it means we got a close flyby of the moon, which meant we visited all 3 bodies in the Kerbin system, and of course got some beautiful screenshots to boot. I really do love flying over the moon sometimes. It really does look really nice when you have Kerbin setting and also the sun setting at the same time. And for some reason the sun just I don't know, reflecting off of the grey surface, it just does things for me. Not literally, I mean it looks nice. Oh god, that's the innuendo for this video has officially arrived. But anyway, we point ourselves prograde and we prepare to penetrate the atmosphere of Kerbin. That's not another innuendo, that's just genuine. We prepare to burn a hole through Kerbin's atmosphere, but first let's witness a beautiful sunrise over Kerbin. And so you can see we're descending, we're trying to stall the nose as much as possible, but obviously aerodynamic pressures will prevent us. We also fire the RCS to try and slow us down a little bit more. Of course we deploy the air brakes, and you can see the heating starting to affect us now. Those are RTGs that you can see all the different temperature warnings, and those are RTGs and everything. And I think we start going back up again, so it's more sort of a 2-stage re-entry. First of all, we have to do these S-turns, similar to how the shuttle used to do, to try and bring us, slow us down even more. You can see I'm trying to turn into the atmosphere here. I always flip this thing upside down and try to turn it into the atmosphere to keep us from going down, because obviously we started going up because I was pulling up to try and maximize the surface area during re-entry. So we're doing very similar to what the shuttle used to do, and that is of course dip into the I believe this is what happened. It used to dip into the atmosphere for one time in order to slow itself down onto a suborbital trajectory, and then it used to go up and then go back, re-enter again at sort of like a shallower angle, because of course then it had less speed, and then of course come into land just as it would. I also tried a very silly thing here, and that's pointing nose down and using the top of the ship to brake. Not sure how effective that is, bearing in mind we always have the possibility of flipping there, but At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because at the end we are coming down now. I believe we've actually slowed down enough, but unfortunately something will happen on the descent that makes me quick load and do this whole thing again. And it's not a very nice thing. It's not very nice at all. It's those pesky landing gear. Like I say, when I was actually designing this craft, I clipped the landing gear up too high, and so as a result, when the actual gear came down, I suppose, they clipped through the wing and knocked the entire body off of the aircraft apart from the cabin, leaving us with literally nothing but the cabin and like the front two wing surfaces, which of course have no control surfaces on them, which meant a fiery or very messy death was imminent for those inside. Steve and whatever I ended up calling him. I can never remember the Kerbal's names on this mission, and when on my little viewfinder that I have in my editing software here, their names are too small to actually read. So I'm gonna have to just make up names for them. And you can see there the gear deploy, and yeah, they fall off and fly off into the distance, and you can see we're now coming down pretty hard, and all my attempts to try and pull us up here are just in vain, and splash. Yeah, so we have to reload, I think 11,000 kilometers from Kerbal here, and obviously the time warp bug comes into play again, but we are ready. This is time. This is the descent, and get ready for an epic rescue, because once again the landing gear do cause somewhat of an issue. I say somewhat of an issue, it's exactly the same issue, but this time we managed to pull off quite an epic recovery. This is just a genuinely more epic re-entry, this one, because stuff breaks and everything. You can see the temperature warning screaming high, all the shaking going on. There's a random explosion of an RTG there. I think several RTGs exploded there that were of course embedded into the top body, and they exploded because of the heat. And you can see all the other temperature warnings starting to get me quite worried, so I'm trying to keep us as level as possible while at the same time trying to bleed off as much speed as I possibly could here. So you can see here we're about to go suborbital, and we're trying to aim for the coast there. We're probably going to enter at some point in the coastline there. You can see some of the parts starting to glow red hot, obviously because of the heating. We're still pretty high up in the atmosphere at this point, and so here we go for the second dip. You can see them starting to glow even more red, the air brakes in the cockpit there, because obviously they are the parts that are getting the most amount of heating, because obviously we're pointing pretty much along the prograde now. So we decide to deploy the gear again a little bit, and of course it breaks the ship apart. So I decide if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to leave them to die and end the mission there. But I try to extend, this is me trying to extend the orbit to see if we can actually land this thing on land. Little to know that of course the landing gear are going to play such a vital role. And you can see here we're now out of fuel. And so we're going to start bleeding off some more speed as we go deeper into the atmosphere. And of course, when we deploy landing gear, as I said, the ship falls apart. And so as a result, I have to try and save this thing somehow. So you can see me here desperately firing the RCS until I'm realizing as I'm hitting the clouds, I'm firing it desperately in the wrong direction. And so I have to start firing it in the opposite direction. Thankfully, the drone core that I had acting as an SAS module did not break off in this instance, which of course means I can use it as an extra SAS module to hopefully keep a little bit more stable in the air. So I'm desperately trying here to actually keep us stable, and so I decide in a rather last ditch attempt to start yawing the thing round in circles, because I see that actually bleeds off a lot of speed. So you can see here we're just violently spinning this thing around. Pardon me, in any way, shape or form, just to see if we can get it to bleed off enough speed to maybe survive till the end. So you can see here, whatever must be happening in that cockpit must be, their faces must be splashed against the walls and then against each other, but you can see we hit and we survive! We do a bounce, but we survive. From bleeding off all of that speed. I don't quite know what happened there, but it was pretty cool nonetheless. So yeah, that was my SSTO, not SSTO mission to Minmus, guys. I really hope you did enjoy. Remember to like and subscribe for more. KSP News will be out at some point. This is Brad signing off. Peace out.